In 1973, Michael Crichton's Westworld, short for Western World, was also written by him, 17 years before his famous novel with similar plot elements about the other high-tech amusement park, Run Amok. More on Crichton in the Jurassic Park, Coma, Runaway and Andromeda retrospectives. The US science fiction western Insider Tip made 8 times its $1.2 million budget in America back and received mostly positive feedback. Among other things, the film uses the word androids, the term for human-looking robots. Its origin lies in the chess word robota, which can be translated as corvée or forced labor. The story takes place in an undefined future in the theme park Delos, which consists of the area's Western, Roman and medieval world, with deceptively real androids as extras. For $1,000 a day, guests can hurt, kill or have sex with them. Special sensors in the weapons prevent injuries to humans. At night, damaged units are maintained and repaired in the underground workshops. Friends Peter and John, who had been to the park before, chose Westworld to experience Wild West adventures. Peter kills a gunslinger in the saloon during a shootout, and again the next day. Gets arrested in accordance to his role, but manages to escape with the help of his friend. A system error causes malfunctions in the automated processes, becoming increasingly noticeable in the robots, which begin to ignore commands and suddenly no longer lose automatically in fights. When the safety settings on the weapons fail, many of the guests get killed. The gunslinger android, which Peter has already defeated twice, also sets out to take revenge on his duel opponent, according to his programming. And John, who unsuspectingly steps in, loses his life, while Peter tries to escape the unstoppable killing machine. The extremely interesting, unusual soundtrack by Fred Karlin, who also scored the sequel, mixes Western and eerie sounds. Westworld is one of the best Android movies of all time, which I had the luck to see as one of my very first movies on TV as a child. This incredibly underrated work, a decade before famous imitators like Terminator, doesn't get nearly the recognition it deserves. It was the first feature to use digital imaging in the scenes depicting the artificial gunslinger's point of view, and it also has one of the earliest mentions ever of computer viruses. The soundtrack doesn't play throughout, sometimes there are only computer sounds or just silence. In my view, the brilliance of Westworld lies precisely in its simplicity, which, as with Jaws, was born out of necessity. In the name of the cause, or a banner of love, with the hand of a friend. Crichton's script was rejected everywhere except MGM, which he wanted to avoid because they were known to make life difficult for directors. So he had no influence on the casting and scrubbed the planned hovercraft scenes for the introduction to deal with an extremely tight budget. This led to a minimal, extremely skillful and creative use of still convincing, mostly practical effects. This in combination with a good cast, outstanding Jules Brunner, who only played far below his regular price because he needed the money, and excellent editing make the illusion perfect. Crichton's cinematic debut is sometimes nonsensically accused by so-called critics not fully to exploit its subject matter. Like the motive of Delos, he is simply a company without any evil plans for world domination whatsoever. or the ethical questions that would arise from android slaves, etc. What that looks like can be seen in the so-called sequels. For the alleged 2016 remake, see Cup vs. Westworld. In 1976, the mistakes after the last disaster seem to have been rectified, and Future World opens its doors with a completely new cast. In the distant future of, what does it say on the check? 1985. Besides the Western world, which has been shut down, the two other worlds are apparently back on track. But the main attraction is a futuristic world where you can pilot a spaceship or visit other planets. Obviously taking inspiration from the NASA movie studios. And an ancient East world is being planned. Here, two reporters investigate the death of an informant who is suspected a conspiracy. There, they soon found out that Delos is striving for world domination and exchanging influential visitors, such as politicians, for robot doppelgangers. And there are also duplicates for the reporters. TV series specialist Richard T. Heffron's Future World here in Germany with the addition The Land of the Day After Tomorrow turned out to be even back then yesterday's news. In the dull, completely predictable story, which has neither suspense nor cleverness, only the set design and a few nice effects like the 3D chess game are worth mentioning. It's so unprofessional and loveless shut out. For example, in a conference they simply watch directly film scenes from Westworld. The robots introduce themselves as robots, which of course completely destroys the illusion, and the fact that the Future World advertising slogan is constantly blaring through the speakers in all worlds doesn't help either. It doesn't even get the facts from the predecessor right. The first death was not in Westworld, but in Medieval World. But of course this would contradict to only keep Westworld closed. And it wasn't due to human failure on part of the staff, as is simply claimed here, but due to an unexplained technical problem which they even themselves state in their own introductory scene. At the end it finally turns completely into body snatchers when Evil Guy says that the replaced people are suddenly no longer robots at all but programmable clones with exact memories. Yul Brynner only appears in a short moronic dream and dance sequence, for which a special chamber was fudged into the story so that you can look into dreams. I felt outright betrayed at the time. And especially the two leads seem completely out of place. The disappointingly lame rehash made with double of the costs, 2.5 million, with around 4 million in America, not even half of its predecessor, and received quite rightly mostly mixed to negative feedback. Beyond Westworld is a TV series from 1980 that directly continued the original and ignored the sequel. In the pilot, Westworld destroyed by sequel specialist Ted Post, Dirty Harry 2, Planet of the Apes 2, Delos calls in an agent to investigate the disappearance of 200 androids stolen by their designer, the mad scientist Simon Quaid, who was allegedly directly responsible for the android uprising. Quaid wants to seize world domination by replacing important politicians and personalities with robots, in this episode on a nuclear submarine, which are now being tracked down by the agent and his partner in the hunt for the android of the week. Those are often part of outrageously complicated plans. As in My Brother's Keepers, infiltrating a football team to kill the owner with a ball to the head accident so that his brother can take his place, which ultimately serves to steal the shares of their oil company. The robots can change their appearance if necessary and, for whatever reason, have completely different weaknesses. In Sound of Terror, Quaid wants to break into a nuclear power plant. But instead of replacing an employee with a robot, he replaces one of an anti-nuclear protest rock band that is giving a concert in front of the building. The TV series about a mad scientist who will do practically anything to avoid success, basically almost the same as Future World, only since meant completely serious. Is that a Westworld movie poster in the executive office? Unintentionally much funnier and therefore in my view also much more entertaining. Was a flop and cancelled after just 3 of the 5 one-hour episodes. In the unaired, the line Quaid tries to sabotage a futuristic car that would make the oil industry redundant. And in Takeover, he implants a computer chip in the brain of a police detective in order to control his thoughts. However, after the usual failure, he vows never to do this again, since for once a simple and effective plan that could have actually worked? Nope, because he prefers to work with robots.
There's chaos in my heart. We've got to get together.
In 1994, the highly recommendable episode Itchy and Scratchy Land from the 6th season of The Simpsons interestingly also contains elements from Jurassic Park, such as the arrival by helicopter. In the ingenious Westworld Disneyland satire, the family goes on vacation to the fully automated, most violent amusement park in the world, until the robots suddenly go crazy and attack the visitors.